Greetings, everyone. My name is James Stancil, and I am with Intellectual Incorporated.
Hello, everyone. My name is Duno-Gottberg. I'm from Rice University.
All right, we're going to take our mask off to make it a little easier for you all to hear us for this presentation. And we're going to be talking to you about our research project, which is known as Houston Youth Power, Histories of Black and Brown Resistance. And POWER stands for Project on Organizing, Writing, Editing, and Reporting. And this is something that we're really excited about sharing with you today. And just to let you know a little bit about me, my name is James Stancil, and I'm the founder and chief program officer for Intellectual Incorporated, which is a 501c3 community organization that promotes reading, media literacy, digital citizenship, and academic achievement in the Houston area.
And I am a professor in the Department of Modern and Classical Literatures and Culture at Rice University. I was the chair of the Department of Spanish, Portuguese, and Latin American Studies until recently. My specialization is the Caribbean. I do the Spanish and the French Caribbean, focusing on race and ethnicity, issues of violence and politics, and visual culture.
So you may be wondering, how did we both come together here? Well, we had worked on a previous research project together, and Luis approached me recently. You look at some of the activities and things, the social unrest and such that's taking place in 2020, and he had an idea about bringing Black and Brown people together, really looking at the history of our alliances in the past and trying to help train a new generation to take some leadership roles and further progress our communities. So Houston Youth Power Research aims at generating local knowledge about racialized social structures and practices that marginalize and oppress communities of color in Houston. We also aim with this project to help develop skills that allow youth to carry out research and develop proper media literacy and digital citizenship while affecting positive change in their high schools and their larger communities.
Our project then seeks to develop notions and practices of civic engagement among Black and Brown youth through collaboration, coming together to develop projects. To do that effectively, we want this youth to develop skills to design, conduct, and implement engaged research. So just not any kind of research, but engaged research. And specifically, research surrounding issues of discrimination and, most importantly, resistance to discrimination.
Yes.
The idea is that they will apply these skills eventually to unearth experiences of solidarity and coalitions that have taken place between the Latinx and the African American community. And through this experiential knowledge, they would also develop models that would help other youth. So the idea is that this experience would be able to be replicated among other members of their communities.
So a driving question that we're seeking to help answer. If African Americans and Latinx have experienced some of the same racial, economic, social, educational, and political challenges, and if an alliance would be more effective in producing social change, why then have these two groups failed to come together and to build coalitions and to address common concerns?
So beyond that driving question of the reasons why our coalitions are not strong, and one of the reasons we think is because we haven't been equipped with the knowledge and the skills to respond to discrimination and oppression and exclusion, we think that doing a kind of work like this in our community is particularly powerful. Why? Because the facts of exclusion and discrimination are eminent and clear. Harris County, where we reside, has a inmate population that is about 60%, 68% Black and Latino, although the country in general population is only 50% white. So this proportion, this way in which incarceration affects disproportionately communities of color is telling us something. It's telling us of the need to develop this kind of awareness and mobilization of this population. The other reason is because we believe in the tremendous impact of any anti-racist project in a community like ours. In any community for sure, but in a community like ours is very powerful. Harris County is the third most populous county in the United States, with a population of around 4.3 million people. So things that we can develop here and replicate will have a great impact in the community, and will be also a great way to respond to these facts of exclusion and discrimination. Now, let me just briefly, we're going to open a small section where we're going to discuss the historical context in which this project takes place. And the first idea that we want to share is that it is a fact that African Americans and Latinx communities have differences for sure. You know, we have different trajectories and experiences, and we're affected by different issues for sure. But at the same time, is undoubtedly that we have been subjected to similar forms of racialization, segregation, and discrimination, which produce similar social, political, and economic issues within these communities. So without ignoring our differences, I think the communalities are strong enough, important enough, that merit communal action.
So one of the first examples of what Luis just told you about is going all the way back to 1968, which we remember the Martin Luther King Jr. assassination. The Black Panther movement was large around the United States, and from Houston, going up to the Midwest was a Black Panther Party member named Bobby Lee. He was featured in this recent documentary called The First Rainbow Coalition. And what he did, along with several other Black Panther members, was he sought out to bring Latinx, Black or African Americans, and poor whites that maybe came from Appalachia together, because they had similar issues and problems in the American Midwest, Chicago, and some other similar areas. So looking at the work that he did, that's something that our youth should know about, and it's something that could be looked at here as well. And the fact that he was from Houston area really stood out to us in our research. A little closer to today's time, in 2016, you had the huge presidential election, and there were lots of issues that came out of that election, and continue to this day. There was 3 organizations: United We Dream Houston, which is a predominantly a brown Latinx organization; Black Lives Matter in Houston, which is an African American predominantly organization; and Truth to Power, which is a predominantly African American organization. They began collaborating during the 2016 election cycle to combat issues that confronted both communities: police brutality, unfair policing, unjust immigration and detention policies, and other issues that really impacted people in Houston. Being closer to the border and having such a diverse community, it was a natural thing for these communities to work together. And also the Air Alliance Houston. This is something that was in 2019 and even carries forward into 2020. There's lots of environmental hazards and issues in Houston that disproportionately affect Black and brown as well as low-income communities. So Air Alliance Houston conducted some studies to show how these communities were impacted and affected. And again, they had similar issues, people from different backgrounds, different cultures, but they had similar issues in that they were all impacted by environmental hazards in our community. And as recently as this past September, just a few weeks ago, the University of Houston conducted a virtual conference called Black, Brown, and Blue, a historical discussing of policing in Houston. And that focused on the effects and the history and the effects of policing on African American and Latinx communities, both together and separately. And it was a lively discussion. It was a great discussion featuring some scholars who are really well known and do research in the African American community as well as the Hispanic Latinx community.
So now we would like to share with you a little bit of the model that we've proposed for this initiative. And we've chosen the notion of action research model, which connects also to the notions of engaged research. In its most simple sense, Action research aims at generating research that studies social systems, while at the same time tries to transform those social systems. So conventional social sciences explore social structures, and eventually people may or may not deploy that knowledge to transform those social structures. But in this model that we would like to implement, we seek to understand the realities of our communities, while at the same time generating possibilities for transformation of the individuals, of the community, and the larger community beyond Houston. Eventually is something we'll comment in a little bit. So action research model pursues action, change, and research, understanding at the same time. It's obviously problem-centered, learner-centered, and action-oriented. It involves a client, in our case is Houston youth of color, and an agent of change that will be a facilitator. This facilitator and this youth will be involved in analyzing the issues at stake: discrimination, resistance, exclusion, conducting a diagnosis of the situation, and then through a process of active learning, problem finding, and problem solving, will develop a project to study these issues. The students, the client, will become then an agent of change, and will collaborate to identify and prioritize specific problems in the community, analyze information. In this case would be historical data, journalistic information, to explore the root causes of the issues at stake. And they would develop then action plans.
So I'll take a few minutes to kind of go more in depth, briefly in depth, on our research project as we plan to implement it here. So inscribed within this model of action research, again, as we explained earlier, we're trying to generate localized knowledge about these racialized social structures and practices of the oppressed Black and Brown communities in Houston, as well as expressions of resistance that challenge those systems. And of course, this methodology, the action research model, seeks both to understand and to alter the problems generated by discrimination. So we're trying to empower our youth. Early research experiences among high school students contributes to their understanding and appreciation for academic careers, like myself and Luis have, but also equips them with the analytical and communication skills to contribute to larger society. And that's one of the main goals here, is for them to appreciate academic research, but also be able to have a product that they can share with and really affect change in the larger community. So in a sense, direct student involvement in social action research on racial inequality and racial justice projects has a profound transformative effect. Further, students will work together to create a series of podcasts. Podcasts, as we know, are very popular now, on joint community action, the history of Black and Brown alliances in the Houston area. And I've outlined a few of those alliances, and there are others that we hope our students will explore and uncover as well. The general focus of this project is to develop the skills in Black and Latinx youth that allows them to carry out research into local archives and generate local knowledge. So knowledge that they can have for themselves and share with their local community, and find out about places that they can seek out resources to help them for this project and in the future projects.
So this methodology will have, in general, about 7 steps that we'll work through with our facilitators and ourselves and our students. First, selecting the focus. So we frame the issues of discrimination and resistance, but they will need to narrow that general topic to explore those issues in their local communities and the history of Houston. Then we're going to provide them with theoretical tools to explore these issues. So we need to clarify those theories. Then we're going to work with them in how to identify the proper research questions. So as we know, asking a question is one of the most complex parts of a research project. So we'll rehearse with them on how to ask a question that works to generate knowledge, that would help them to conduct research. Then they will collect their information, their data, they would analyze their data, and they will report this information to their groups, to the small groups, and to the facilitators. The last step entails taking action, in the form of disseminating their knowledge, but also by educating others. So the general purpose of this kind of research, of this kind of project, is to develop a reflexive practitioner. This is our students, the members of this community of researchers are going to be able to think critically about their history, but also about the way they unearth their history and the way they analyze data and the way they practice educating others. The other purpose is making progress on school-wide priorities. This is to conceive the setting of schools beyond the immediate notions that we understand the school system to do. We want them to graduate, of course. We want them to succeed, of course, but we want them to achieve more than that. We want them to be able to consider social action as part of their general education. They want them to be citizens, and to be a citizen of a community, a member of a community, means that your knowledge is also shared with others and affects the community in general. While doing this, of course, they will develop a professional culture. They will be also better equipped to be professionals in whichever area they want to develop them in the future.
So some of the products that we would like to see from our students is the P.O.W.E.R website. This is going to be hosted by my organization, Intellectual. We have a website, and that's where the students will be able to display their research products. And also the P.O.W.E.R podcast, which we discussed earlier, will be housed on this website. Also, it'll be distributed widely through podcasting organizations or social media websites and such. And finally, the multiplication of the experience. So we want to train local facilitators who work with us with this project, or even afterwards, so they can continue this work in their local school districts and community organizations. We hope to be able to use this to ignite a spark in the community and get people to do more of this type of work. Now, in terms of this particular conference, some of the areas of focus for this conference that we feel like are addressed in our project is media activism and advocacy. And so we're using the media to be able to teach and really help our students to become more active and to advocate the issues that they feel strongly about. Of course, we're going to look at media representations, because through their research, they're going to be able to see that maybe some of the issues and challenges in Black and Brown communities come from how they're portrayed in the news media, on social media, or in the community, stereotypes and such. Also, social justice is all throughout this project. That's something that Luis and I both feel very strongly about, and we've committed our skills and our talents to help advance our communities through social justice. And of course, student media production using the websites, the podcasts, and other mass media means that they may come up with, or that are deemed appropriate for this project. And finally, of course, youth activism. That's something that we really want to inspire in our youth, for them to feel like that they can have a voice and that they can affect change in their communities. And sometimes all they need is the tools to learn how to do that. And we hope through the P.O.W.E.R project that we provide those skills.
With this, we reach the end of the presentation, and we hope that this is stimulating for you as it is for us. And we welcome your questions, your thoughts, your ideas to make this better and more productive, not for us, but for the community that we